Hello and good morning. My name is Lana Hunt and I'm the Director of Training and Outreach with IPMG. I would like to welcome everyone to today's Professional Development Workshop, which is Charting a Course to a Good Life. This training has been approved for one Advocare external training credit. So if you are a case manager attending today, you do need to be logged in for the duration of the training, excluding the Q&A portion, and you will want to submit the confirmation of attendance email, which you will receive from IPMG's Public Relations, and follow Advocare instructions in order to receive the credit. If for some reason you do not receive that email and you believe that you should have, and allow for 2 business days, please contact us at customerservice@gotoipmg.com. And as always, within 2 business days of today, a link to the training recording, all of the associated materials, and the full question and answer will be sent to all registrants and attendees via email. And it will also be available on IPMG's website, which is www.gotoipmg.com, and we will also share it on our social media sites. So if for some reason you know someone that was not able to attend today, you can always refer them to our website, where we do keep an archive of all of the previous professional development workshops. We also appreciate and welcome your feedback, and a survey regarding the workshop will launch immediately after we end today's workshop. So please just take a minute to do that. We do really appreciate the feedback that you give, and also look at your suggestions for future workshops. It is now my pleasure to introduce Heather Sorrells and Carolyn Underwood, both of whom are IPMG Assistant Directors of Case Management Operations and are the presenters for today's workshop. Heather is a graduate of Purdue University with a degree in Audiology and Speech Sciences. She's been an IPMG employee since our inception in 2006, and has held positions of case manager, transition manager, supervisor, and manager of field support. She is currently the Assistant Director for Case Management Operations, with her main responsibilities being support of field support managers and the intake and Medicaid manager to ensure the completion of the intake process for individuals new to waiver services and to IPMG. Heather's philosophy includes the belief that every individual has the right to choose their own path in life, and that the role of case management is to assist individuals in advocating for their personal wants and needs while ensuring that they have the information, resources, and supports that they desire to make those decisions. Carolyn is a graduate of Indiana University with a degree in sociology and began working with IPMG in 2007. Her roles within IPMG have included case manager, case management supervisor, quality compliance manager, and her current role is Assistant Director of Case Management Operations. Carolyn's responsibilities include supporting IPMG managers and professional development managers to ensure that they have the tools they need to support both experienced and our new employees. Carolyn's belief is that every individual has the right to choose how they want to live their lives, and that case management can assist in helping individuals to fulfill their dreams. Please join me in welcoming Heather and Carolyn as they share information on charting a course to a good life, which will incorporate the guiding principles of LifeCourse Framework, and will also explore the current conversation of what does it really take to support individuals and families to have a good life, and ways in which to support them throughout their lifespan. So with that, I am going to turn this over to Heather and Carolyn. All right, thank you, ladies. You're ready to go.
All right, thanks, Lana. Before we get started, I do want to take a minute to acknowledge some of the resources that we used in the development of this presentation. At the end, there will be links so you're able to get even more detailed information than what we've presented today. So for our agenda, we want to look at the current national trends in supporting individuals with intellectual and developmental disabilities and why a community of practice project was developed as a result of those trends. We'll look at Indiana's trends within the waiver program, particularly in regards to age groups and living arrangements, and examine Indiana's current need within age groups. We will also discuss what types of supports and conversations need to be put in place in order to assist individuals and families to have a good life. And at the end, like I've already mentioned, we'll share additional resources to further support individual families across the lifespan. So this graph, which is from 2000, shows that there are about 4.7 million people in the United States that have an intellectual or developmental disability. Current data shows that number has increased to about 4.9 million, but these percentages break out to be about the same. So most individuals don't receive any type of formal services, and that small group that actually do receive services, only about half of them receive them outside of the family home. This is why national and state conversations need to focus on how we support individuals in their family home, not just through paid services, but with building a network of support. So in the past, most of our conversations in the field have focused on supporting individuals with developmental disabilities and their families who are just known to the system. And as we can see, most individuals aren't known to the system. A very small number in relation to this actual number of individuals with disabilities receive supports that all families need to have access to and choices about these supports. Since most individuals do not receive any paid services, a lot of them are living very successfully in their community. So formal paid supports could obviously not fund everyone who needs something, and we can't fund every need that everyone has. We need to look at what are that 75% doing, and what are they doing well, and how can we incorporate those strategies for the other 25% who are receiving paid services. In Indiana, as of September 1st of 2012, the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services began implementation of a planned effort to reduce the wait list. Our wait list was over 15,000 individuals, and by just 4 years later, at the end of 2016, that was down to 1,400. So that means folks who applied in about November of last year are now receiving their waiver slot. So as a result of this effort to reduce the wait list, providers have experienced a huge amount of growth. They're getting a lot of new referrals. Individuals are coming onto the waiver at a younger age. And as everyone is aware, it's becoming very, very difficult to find and retain qualified staff. So we look at Indiana's trends and how they correspond to the national trends. We looked at data, of course, just for individuals supported by IPMG. But those who are on the family support waiver, almost all of them live in the family home. We just have 1% who live in a shared housing situation. And what that means can vary, but some examples would be a couple individuals on the family support waiver living together and just splitting the bills. They might share some community habilitation or participant and assistant care staff. They might not. There's a very, very rare instances of someone on the family support waiver living with individuals who have 24-hour support in a home, and they're really just splitting the bills with them. And then when we look at just the CIH waiver, we've often think of the community integration and habilitation waiver as supported living or 24-hour staffing. But when we look at where individuals are really living, it's really not just supported living. 28% of that dark green circle are individuals living in a family home or a foster home. And then the light green, orange, and blue all combined, so those are different 1, 2, or 3 roommates. Those combined make out 57% in supported living. So that's just a little over half. It means almost half of our individuals, even on the CIH waiver, are living in their own home or a family home. So they're outside of that traditional supported living model. So then we combine them all, and what does it look like when you combine both of those waivers? 63% of folks live in their family home, and only 37% live outside of that family setting. So obviously, we need to further develop supports that not only encompass paid staff, but also natural support. So we also broke down our demographics by age range. For all the age range slides, both types of waivers are combined. So that 21 to 40-year-old range makes up the largest percentage of individuals supported, and that's obviously 45%. And about 20% of our individuals are under the age of 20. And if you look, those under 10 is getting close to the number of those over 65. And of the new referrals, so these are just individuals that came onto the waiver, new to the waiver in 2016, 60% of our new referrals were under the age of 20. And so last year, those between the ages of 0 and 10 were made up 32% of our new referrals. But just by contrast, only 1 year before that, in 2015, 0 to 10-year-olds made up 18% of our new referrals. So those referrals are coming in younger and younger each year. And while those in the school age range and the young adult years continue to make up the majority of new referrals, we have begun to regularly receive referrals for individuals under the age of 3 and even under the age of 1. So this does give us the opportunity to implement supports and services and education at an even younger age for families. Looking closer at the children coming onto the waiver, those transitioning out of high school, those are still that largest age category of new referrals. And I already mentioned we're seeing an increase in referrals for individuals under the age of 10 and even under the age of 3. So I went out to our intake staff, or as we call them, managers of field support, to get their feedback about what are the barriers that they are seeing with individuals that are new to the waiver. And the consensus was that individuals who were school aged were the most difficult to match with waiver services. And that's also the age range that we're experiencing the largest volume of new referrals. And that the younger the child was, the more difficult it was to match up services that fit the family's wants and needs. And then if individuals are under that age of 10, the managers of field support responded that most services, the most requested services, were often those services that are very hard to get. Families often wanted to pursue behavior management, recreational therapy, and music therapy, but there are wait lists in pretty much every area of the state for any therapy-related service. And families also, they see on the list of services that there's speech therapy, occupational therapy, and physical therapy, so they want to use those as well. But then they also have to go through the process of getting a denial from their private insurance and exhausting traditional Medicaid funding. So it's a complicated process, the requirements are confusing, and then even if they make it through all those steps, are they able to find a provider that will accept more than one funding source so they can really maximize the use of therapy? When we asked them about kids that were 11 to 20 years of age, there were a lot of similarities in the barriers, but they also wanted those behavior management, rec therapy, music therapy. But once kids kind of hit that middle school age, high school, aging out, families really want to pursue direct support staff a lot more frequently. But then that's also hard to get. Staff for respite, community habilitation, or personal assistance and care services are very hard to obtain too. Most families want these services on the weekends or after school hours. And from what, the managers of field support all kind of said the same things over and over. They want rec therapy and music therapy. There are no openings in my area. There haven't been for months. It's not been available for over a year. Families are frustrated. They thought it would be a quick process. They finally got the waiver, and now they can't access what they want. Folks are also having a hard time finding behavior management providers that can meet with their child after school or on the weekend. They're being told our time slots are full, then we don't have time. And then there's also the issue of after school care. A lot of families are reporting they can't have a typical job. They can't have a typical work schedule. Their child's too old for a traditional child care. It's expensive to pay that out of pocket. The waiver wouldn't fund all those after school hours. So then they feel like they can't have a typical home life. So what have we learned? When we look at the trends for new individuals coming onto the waiver, we see the individuals are most likely to be living in their family home. They're most likely to be school age when they come into services. And it's very difficult for families to get the desired services they want. There's a lot of staffing shortages, there's wait lists, there's scheduling conflicts, and these desires for services are also formed based on what is available. We're telling families these are the services available, and we're not asking what supports do you need. We're focused merely on what's available through the waiver and how to match them with that service, and not talking about what supports they need so we can develop those things outside of that traditional supported living model and service model. So this is not just an Indiana issue, it's a national issue. The Weizmann Center at the University of Wisconsin published a paper detailing their findings after conversations with families and service providers. Parents and providers noted that conversations were mostly focused on finding a service, or finding a resource that would fix the immediate challenge faced by their loved one with a disability. Parents reported they felt like there was a lack of resources and that they had to give up many things that were important to them. The ordinary experiences they wanted for themselves and their families did not seem to be available or possible. And this just coincides right with what the managers of field support reported. For example, that parents can't have a typical work schedule because they're unable to secure after-school care. Providers also talked about the pressure of mounting paperwork, which I'm sure many of you can relate to, and some said they worried about becoming robotic in their conversations with parents. They wanted to have conversations with parents that supported more natural solutions. And it was noted that most time was spent on developing service relationships, and there was little focus on developing natural or ordinary relationships, both for the individual and for the parents. So what do? How do we support families to develop more natural relationships and focus less on what service can be provided in any specific moment? The National Agenda for Supports to Families found in 2011 that a comprehensive and coordinated system was needed to be developed that included 4 main components. The first one being education and training, providing this to families early on both so they know what best practices are both within and outside of the disability services. The next component was to connect them to other families and to other self-advocates, build a natural network of folks that understand the challenges that they face. Third was to develop a collaborative process to support a vision for the future for individuals with intellectual or developmental disabilities and their family members, starting early and continuing across the lifespan. And the last component was mechanisms to assist in navigating and accessing services and support, both those in the disability system and outside of it. So it can be very hard to know what's even out there. How do I apply? How do I even get into services? What can we use to make, so mechanisms to make that easier for families to do. So the Supporting Families Project developed a community of practice. So a community of practice is a group of people that come together to focus on and study a specific topic or issue. You can see on this map, those darker purple states were the original 5 states that participated in this, and then the light purple states were added as part of an expansion of the project in July of 2016. So you can see Indiana is in that expansion project. The project will form a national community of practice for participating states to share information and learning from each of their experiences of what works and doesn't work. So Indiana began sharing information about this project with individuals and stakeholders last fall. They did that during the introduction of the LifeCourse Framework during the FSSA listening sessions. So the LifeCourse Framework, it was created by families, and it's to help individuals and families of all abilities, all ages, develop a vision for a good life, think about what they need to know and do, identify how to find or develop support, and discover what it takes to live the lives they want to live. Individuals and families may focus on their current situation and stage of life, but they may also find it helpful to look ahead and to think about life experiences that will help them move towards an inclusive, productive life in the future.
So Heather has discussed the trends in services both nationally and in Indiana, and has reviewed the components that our system needs to support individuals in their family home. So now how do we implement this change to fully support those individuals in their family home across all the lifespans? So first, we're going to start by discussing an individual and family's vision for the future. So as a system, we have often focused our thinking on what is happening now and what we want to see happen over the next year. But what happens to us early in our lives can have a significant impact on our quality of life and well-being in the future. So it's important to help people have positive, healthy experiences while also providing adequate support and ample opportunities to learn and make mistakes so that they can have better outcomes later in their life. We believe that there is more to supporting people with disabilities than just health and safety, which has been the main focus of services and supports for quite some time. Our conversations need to change to talk about life outcomes, not just goals for the next year. So things we need to be thinking about: are they going to have a job? Who's going to love them? Who's going to be there for them when you can't? These are all those important questions that need brought up so that the conversations can begin occurring. So when discussing life change stages, we need to consider these 6 life domains for each stage. Keeping in mind that people live whole lives made up of specific, connected, and integrated life domains that are important to a good quality of life. Our lives as everyday citizens are complex and multifaceted. So what happens in one area of our life, for example, what may happen in our jobs, in our work, could affect another area, such as our family or our housing situation. It's important to recognize the interconnectedness of everyday life so that we can work to make our whole lives as complete and fulfilling as possible. So on the screen now, you can see the life domains. Daily life and employment, that is pretty self-explanatory, but it does include what a person does as part of their everyday life. So for example, school, volunteering, routines that they may already have, and their life skills. Community living involves where and how someone lives, as well as community access, transportation, and those home adaptations or modifications that they may need. The social and spirituality domain would include building friendships. So that's going to focus on making those natural supports that we're already out there seeking, as well as leisure activities, faith community. The healthy living domain includes the individual's wellness. This is where their medical, behavior, and developmental wellness is going to come into play, managing and accessing the health care. And then safety and security is going to be just that staying safe and secure. That's also going to be the area that you want to talk about guardianship and alternative options such as the supported decision making. And then the last domain of citizenship and advocacy includes setting goals and driving how one's own life is lived. So as I said at the beginning, it's important that as individuals and families go through each life stage, that the life domains that have been discussed are utilized in those plans. When we look at each life domain, we need to think about what is currently working and what types of supports need to be in place to achieve the desired good life. So supports address all facets of life, and they adjust as roles and needs of all the family members change. The 3 strategies to identify the needed supports for individuals and their families can be organized into these 3 buckets that you're seeing right now. So bucket number 1 is the discovery and navigation. This encompasses having the information and tools that they need to navigate their life. So for instance, when considering the life domain of community living and everyday life for a teenager, the team needs to think about the individual's desire for employment. Have they had the opportunity to explore different options? Have they visited workplaces that they think are of interest? If the individual already has a plan in place for when they graduate from school, has any needed skill development for that goal been discussed? Then the second bucket of connecting and networking is going to encompass making those connections with peers and resources to help the individuals navigate their community. So continuing with that previous example of the teenager and their desire for employment, Who can the individual talk to when exploring job or post-secondary education? It's important to note here that the paid and natural supports should also consider who they know that they can connect the individual with. This could include potential places to apply or places the individual could visit just to see their options. Keep in mind that even if the individual doesn't like any of the options that you've helped to connect them, progress has still been made. Eliminating career and education opportunities they don't like is actually helping them get closer to finding the opportunity that they do want to pursue. Then bucket number 3, which is goods and services, encompasses the tangible items you buy and use along with the public and private organizations in your community that you access for support. So continuing with that previous example, addressing this bucket could be done by utilizing VR and also by assisting the individual with buying new clothes for their interviews. So when looking at goods and services, we need to think just beyond waiver services. Individuals and families access an array of integrated supports to achieve the envisioned good life, including those that are publicly or privately funded and based on eligibility, such as the waiver. Community supports that are available to anyone, such as consulting an expert like a banker, a lawyer, a physician, or seeking assistance from a librarian, public transportation, or even store clerks. Relationship-based supports or natural supports such as family and friends. Technology, this could be communication or schedule apps, assistive technology, reminder alarms, and those that take into account the assets and strengths of the individual and family. So the graphic on the slide that you're seeing right now shows the individual in the center and then being supported in a variety of ways that just don't include the paid supports. So they're being supported by the technology-based, community-based, relationship-based, and personal strengths and assets, not only DD services. In the past, our conversations about supporting people with disabilities and their families mainly revolved around those paid supports. Now we're moving to try to assist families as well as providers and other stakeholders understand that all of us access a variety of supports to make it through our daily lives. Individuals and their families may need unique, different types of support needs that adjust and change as family members age. When we think of our own families, each period of our life comes with its own set of rewards and challenges. The role of case managers and providers are greater than just assisting a family to obtain a waiver service. Families are not just seeking services, they are looking for guidance and education to support each life stage. So we're also going to discuss some of the questions that the team needs to be asking throughout each of these life stages. Let's look at some of the supports that are required through each life stage. Keep in mind, these supports are not just waiver supports, they are supports that are required through a combination of systems and supports. So we're going to begin with discussing the life stage of infancy. At this age, parents are often overwhelmed. There are often lots of therapies and or specialist appointments occurring. First Steps may already be providing some services. So the addition of waiver services is going to result in having 2 sets of supports. So if you think about that, that's going to mean 2 sets of case managers, 2 sets of providers, and 2 sets of rules and requirements that the families are going to have to familiarize themselves with. Also at this age, parents may not be comfortable with outside staffing coming into the home, and so they can look at hiring family members for respite. But with that said, families and teams will need to discuss if this is a good use of paid resources, because if that family member would naturally be a babysitter for them. If so, the team may want to look at utilizing those paid supports in a different way. At this age, when starting the person-centered planning process, teams need to ask, what does the family, the parents, envision for their child as an adult? It also needs to be encouraged to reach for those high expectations when creating this vision, because depending on the family's experience with developmental disabilities, they may not realize all of the possibilities for the future. As we reviewed earlier, the most commonly desired services often have a wait list for limited staffing availability. Families should be encouraged to put their child on the waiting list for desired services such as music therapy and recreational therapy at this age group. The team needs to assist the family by routinely following up on where the child is on the wait list. Often, your case manager is going to do this for you. It's important to think outside of the box when thinking about the services and support needs for infants to age 3. So for example, behavior management is often only seen as a service that assists with negative behaviors, but behavior management has also been used and successful to assist with toilet training strategies. For the next life stage of early childhood, which is ages 4 to 6, children at this age are beginning to attend preschool or starting kindergarten. So it's important to families to find services that can accommodate that schedule. Families are often wanting services to supplement current therapies that they already have. Families are also looking to the CMs and providers to provide education on navigating the school system. So teams will want to make sure that they link families to resources such as InSource. Within this age group, it is important to begin developing and refining communication skills in order to express choices, wants, and needs. It's not too early to begin introducing self-advocacy. During this life stage, the team should be reviewing if current services are fostering skill development. A question that teams should be asking is, are the services in place now designed to help them on that path? It is important to review the family's vision for their child that was discussed during the infancy to age 3 lifespan. Each life stage should build upon what was put in place during the previous life stages. So when discussing children ages 4 to 6, there should be conversations associated with developing relationships with other children their ages. Now, IPMG does have a resource. It's called I Connect with Friends, which is located on the IPMG website, and it is a listing of resources and activities that are available by area and everyone can access. So I encourage everyone to go to the website and take a look at that so that you can find things going on in your area. So now taking a look at the school years, elementary and middle school age, 6 to 13. Once the child has reached this age, it's important to continue with the advocacy and choice making. One way to look at this is through team meeting involvement. Are they participating or are they in the next room? If they're in the next room, invite them into the meeting for even a short time to tell the team some of their likes and slowly build on this, including them a little more in each meeting. Every child has interests, likes, and dislikes. So it's important that children are involved in activities that interest them outside of their parents. And these could be sports, any clubs in your local area, any activities that they have interest in that you could seek out in your area. At this age, the child should begin becoming familiar with community resources, and community safety should be a focus during this life stage. During the person-centered planning review, vocational plans should be discussed from the start, but it is particularly imperative that by early adolescence, this is a regular discussion and some types of plans are in place. So does the child or their parents think they will pursue secondary education or a specific job training program? What skills are they going to need to improve on in order to do this? And then a review of the services that are in place should be completed to make sure that the services are still the appropriate services to continue to build upon the identified skills. I'd like to share a success story of children that fall within this age group. There was a young individual who was 12 years old with the diagnosis of mild intellectual disability and Tourette's syndrome, along with anxiety and seizures. He was unable to attend school due to just various reasons, but primarily due to maladaptive behavior, and his mother was homeschooling him. Through the waiver, his mother decided to use music therapy to assist him, and he decided that he wanted to learn to play the banjo. Within a few months, he was playing several songs. As a result of his new talent and accomplishments, his self-esteem increased and his ability to focus on tasks increased. He was able to go back to school, and he has continued to do well in school. Also, teams have used music therapy for academic purposes, such as reading. One music therapist actually came up with a way to teach a middle school age boy with Down syndrome to read using song. And another therapist used music therapy to help a young girl with math skills by using beats of a drum. As I stated earlier, it's very important to look at the services that we have and think, how can these services assist children in the needs that the children experience? Now we're going to talk about that transition to adulthood. So transition from school age to adult life is always in the back of a family's mind. The transition from high school can be one of the most complex times in the life of the individual and the family. Families want to draw upon all community and generic resources available to help their now adult child plan a life that is community-based, where he or she has a job, home, and relationships just like their peers without disabilities, with access to the necessary supports needed to make it a reality. This is the age where many families begin discussing the need for the guardianship. Schools have mentioned to the families to begin thinking about this as the individual approaches age 18. One thing that should be considered prior to guardianship is supported decision-making. So now when an individual turns 18, it is presumed that they are able to make their own decisions. They may need support in making some decisions, and then with that support can make the decision. I look at this as being no different than you and I making some decisions. Prior to myself making a large purchase or even booking a vacation, I look to others for advice, even, research through the internet, and then make my decision based on my own thoughts, research, and the information I have received from others. So in essence, I was supported to make that decision. You can find more information on supported decision-making at lifecoursetools.com and supporteddecisionmaking.org. Employment and secondary education should also be regularly discussed during this age group, and VR should be participating in IEP meetings. At this age, we need to be working and discussing more on the plans for the future. Are there employment opportunities that they would like to pursue? Secondary education. We're going to build upon what we spoke about in the last life age. Also, we want to go back to what was the parent's vision for the child's future. And now we want to look at, does it align with the child's, and what do you do if it doesn't? Well, the team should advocate on behalf of the individual, but in a way that does not alienate the parents. Sometimes it takes an outside voice to help parents see that their child is ready to progress to the next stage. So we need to have those conversations and listen to the parents' concerns as well, and try to put services, supports, natural supports in place to alleviate their concerns. As in every life stage, it's important that there is a connection with natural supports being made. Teams should be working on community safety, using public transportation, being able to identify basic community resources, and how to utilize them. Now, this shouldn't just be limited to those places that are related to errands, but the fun locations that we all want to be able to go to on our own, such as the bank, post office, grocery store. Okay, maybe those places aren't the fun places, but how about the movie theater, parks, or even the individual's favorite restaurants? The conversation needs to start with, where does the individual want to go? Then the team can look at what skills can be enhanced to address any of those barriers that keep the individual from being able to go there independently. And then once those are identified, ask the question, are all the barriers being addressed? As you all know, staffing shortages are a problem across the state. There's been success within this age group when providers and individuals and families have utilized school aides or older school peers, or anyone that already knows the individual. Using older school peers, it's like it then turns into their learning skills without feeling like they have staff, because they're using people that are cool to hang out with. When teens have been able to have staff that is in their early 20s, it has helped to learn skills because the staff is able to relate on the same age level. So looking at the adult life, which is ages 22 to 62. Family members, including siblings, still have a critical role in ensuring access and coordination of the supports needed, whether the individual is living with them or in their own home. Educated and empowered families will have learned and taught their children how to live a life based on self-determination and community participation, while recognizing that both the family and individual may need appropriate supports across the lifespan. Now, this is a very broad age group, and lots of life changes will occur in this stage. Not only is the individual now an adult and then starting to age, but their caregivers are aging as well. So we need to ensure we are assisting individuals and families in developing supports that are outside of just their home. So having a large network of support helps everyone adjust to the life changes that they experience. So some questions and discussions that should occur during this life stage: is employment regularly discussed? What does the individual want, and what are the barriers for that individual who isn't maybe able to jump right into what they want to do? Once those barriers are identified, the question can then be asked, are the barriers being addressed? Are the services in place to assist with addressing the barriers? If not, the team then needs to look at the services as well as the natural supports that are available and discuss what's going to be the best way to address these barriers. It continues to be important to make connections with natural supports and to focus on community safety and involvement. Questions the team should ask in order to address involvement is, does the individual have the opportunity to make friends and participate in integrated community activities? Are we using waiver services for normal community connections like attending churches, clubs, or a civic organization? Have we helped individuals to meet people with common interests to develop these natural supports? Keeping in mind that having paid staff take the individual everywhere naturally creates a segregation. We need to look at paid supports focusing on developing these connections with others, not focusing on just getting access to the activity. So if any of those questions were answered no, we need to look at the barriers as to what is keeping it from occurring and address those. As any individual ages, behaviors can change due to medical conditions. At this stage in an individual's life, many medical changes could occur which could cause a change in behavior. A female may experience menopause, which can cause a significant change that the individual themselves may not understand. It's always best to rule out any medical conditions when new behaviors start occurring. I want to take a moment here to share another success story. There was a young lady who was in a group home and was transitioned into supported living on a CIH waiver several years ago. She was very high functioning, but had not ever been independent. She went to a group home from her foster mothers at age 18, and at this point, she was in her early 30s. She went to the team and she told them that she wanted to try to live alone, and the provider was willing to give it a try. So the team looked, they found her a nice home to rent, which she could afford. It was in a location where she could walk to what she needed. The provider had issues with staffing, so the team got together, and with an ISP rewrite and team approval, they did extend her alone time. Now, they did this through team support in the form of phone calls, FaceTime at various intervals from her provider staff, the CM, and her foster mother. Through doing the FaceTime, the calls, her safety was able to be monitored. She also used a phone app called Where Am I to help her when she was out. Because of all this that was put in place, her confidence in her ability to take care of her own needs increased. She did so well, and as a result now, she has very limited staff. She has been successful in finding a part-time job working with animals, and she has learned to advocate for herself and to be a spokesperson for others to increase her independence. She and the team were open to ways of utilizing natural supports as well as technology to assist her with building the needed skills she needed to live independently successfully. The last age group that we're going to take a look at is the golden years, or the retirement age, and this is age 62 and older. So the time comes when aging caregivers are beginning to have caregiving needs of their own, and it's more difficult for them to play an active role in the lives of their grown children. This is a time of life many parents and families dread as they think of what could happen to their adult child with a disability if they or their siblings were no longer around. The team focus shifts from skill development to planning for transitions, more medical care, more medical appointments. At this stage, family supports have generally decreased. Parents are elderly or deceased. The siblings have also aged and have families of their own. Through each lifespan, we have discussed the importance of building natural supports leading up to this life stage. Teams and families don't want to be put into a position once we get to this stage of, have we done enough to help the individual develop a circle of natural supports? During this age, the individual may want to retire, as everyone else who reaches this age hopes to do. What is available to them if they do? Teams will need to begin to look at building new natural supports as well as utilizing natural supports already in place. So what can be thought about is, are there any churches or community organizations that host any functions for senior citizens during the day that the individual could participate in? Another thing to keep in mind when discussing this age group is medical conditions can change and are probably changing at this age, just as we discussed in the life stage before. There may be an increase in the physician's appointments. There may be an increase in care that is needed, and the caregivers may not be able to provide that care. So one option is to look at increasing any Medicaid PA or putting in place any Medicaid PA that an individual may have as their medical conditions change.
As we previously noted by the National Agenda on Supports to Families, supporting individuals and their families requires a comprehensive and coordinated service system that includes the following strategies. First, we need funding for those basic goods and services for individuals and their caregivers. So this includes staffing support such as respite, but also needs to include things like technology and other cash assistance programs, home modifications, those kinds of things. We need to help families plan for crisis prevention and intervention. As Carolyn mentioned in the last life stage, you don't want to get to where suddenly things change and the natural supports are gone without having a plan in place. We need to make sure that plan is there if there's a sudden shift in the family dynamic, which could, it could be a job loss or a loss of a caregiver, sudden change in health. What does the family foresee happening for their loved one if there is a change in the supports available to the individual or those needed by the individual? What is the plan if the current caregiver is no longer available to provide these supports? Next, we need to educate families on the services and policies that affect them. We need to enable them to advocate for the services and policies that would best benefit both the individual and the family. And last, we need to have a system for accountability. It needs to have quality assurance through data collection, evaluation of the data, and feedback on that data. So we have a lot of research and data. It tells us that the direction we need to go as a system and as providers in that system. But we need to remember that individuals and families are the center of that movement. We need to support individuals and families to be truly involved in influencing planning, policy, implementation, evaluation, and revision of practices that affect them. Every program, organization, system, and policymaker must always think about a person in the context of their family And family doesn't have to mean that traditional 2.5 kids family unit. It's how the individual defines their family. Without the input and feedback from the people that access them, the policies and practices that guide and regulate our systems of support can actually hinder and not help families. Carolyn's success stories really exemplified that. Individuals who expressed what their choice was and were supported to pursue that particular goal increased their confidence, which then increased their independence in lots of other areas. So this is why it is critical that the self-advocate and family voice is heard. So we want to highlight, as I mentioned at the very beginning, the resources used to develop this presentation. The community of practice links are noted here, including their website, Facebook page, Twitter feed, and how to join the email list. The last link will take you directly to the LifeCourse Toolkit, which provides a huge amount of information and resources on implementing the LifeCourse Framework. And just as a reminder, the LifeCourse Framework is a way of thinking, it's a way of planning. It's not another paperwork system. It's a way to incorporate your thinking and planning within any service model. Anyone can use it, not just someone with a disability, but how to think how you're planning for the future and making thoughtful actions to get there. There are worksheets there that are available to help guide conversations that look at the 6 life domains and how to implement the 3 types of support. There are also some additional tools that really provide more specific guidance when an individual is in a transitional stage of life, such as going from school to work or work to retirement. And Indiana is a community of practice, and I encourage everyone to look at these resources. This is what's being used by Indiana as changes are implemented to our own system. And you don't need to furiously write these links down because you will get a copy of this presentation via email in a couple days. And my computer froze. That's interesting. So lastly, we would like to highlight, not lastly, we have noted here resources mentioned in the presentation, including the National Agenda on Support to Families, webinar series that provides an overview of the LifeCourse Framework, and then that paper I mentioned from the Wiseman Center at the University of Wisconsin. And then lastly, of course, we'd like to highlight some wonderful resources on the IPMG website. We do have information on how to apply for the waiver, so if you know of anyone who may qualify and are not yet using services, that information is there. There's a listing of all the BEADS districts, as well as an overview of the waivers in general and person-centered planning. Of course, you are aware because you're attending, but we have monthly professional development workshops that are available to everyone and are free. All of the recordings are on our website. They cover a wide variety of topics if you haven't been on one before. Some of those include Medicaid basics, preparing for an IEP conference, supported decision-making, and positive behavior support, so that's just a few of them. We also have a listing by BEADS districts on the website of resources available in specific areas. So this includes the local contacts for state and national organizations, as well as a variety of support groups based on diagnosis. And as Carolyn mentioned earlier, we would also like to really highlight I Connect with Friends. You can follow the web address that's listed here, or you can go to our website and link to it through that. It's a database of leisure and social activities by area that are not disability-based. It's designed to help individuals build natural supports with others who have similar interests, because people have interests that expand just beyond their diagnosis. So we really want to connect people with things that excite them. You can search by county, and you can also submit additional suggestions to be added, so we're always looking to grow that database. And internally, we have a resource database of approximately 1,000 resources. It's over that now. It grows every month. You can talk to any case manager, and they can use this database to find support. It's kind of the traditional resource database, so food banks, energy assistant programs, legal assistance, those kinds of things. So using a combination of all these tools will help teams to build a varied network of supports for the individuals that we serve. I think
well, thank you very much. Yes, I am. Well, thank you both very much. This is excellent information, not only for case managers, but also for other service providers, and of course for individuals and families that we support. It does go along, as Heather and Carolyn mentioned, with the state of Indiana's vision for person-centered planning. Case managers are going to be involved in a training on this more specifically in September, so we're very excited about the future of where we're moving in regards to supporting individuals and families with their dream, with their vision for a good life. So thank you both very much for that. Before we get to the questions, I would just like to mention a few things. First, on September 15th, which will be our next professional development workshop, we will be welcoming back Dr. Mary Rita Weller. She's the Assistant Professor of Social Work at Kutztown University, and she is going to be presenting information on how we can support individuals and families in talking about their sexuality, gender identity, and overall sexual health. So you may have remember Dr. Mary Rita as one of our guest presenters last year, and she's very much an expert on this topic. So we're very excited that she'll be joining us again on September the 15th at the same typical time, 11:30 Eastern and 10:30 Central Time. We will be sharing the registration information for that in the very near future. So thank you. And once again, as a reminder, the information that Heather and Carolyn presented today will be available within the next 2 business days on IPMG's website, as well as an email to all who registered for today's workshop. Will also contain the recording, a link to the recording, to the materials, to the references or the resources that Carolyn and Heather referenced in those websites, as well as the question and answer session from today. So please be looking for that again within the next 2 business days. So we do have a few minutes available for some questions. And the first question is, does the Supporting Families Project have a website? And I'll go ahead and answer that. Carolyn, or excuse me, Heather, if you wanted to move the slide back to that, to the list of websites that are available. You can see that the National Community of Practice for Supporting Families, that website is listed, and again, that information will be included in the materials that we sent out. So I would encourage everyone to take a look at all of those resources that Heather and Carolyn have shared with us today. The next question is asking if this information is what will be provided in the upcoming training in September for case managers. And would Heather or Carolyn, would you like to answer that?
I can jump in. This training, some of the topics, the themes, will be a part of that training in September, but that's going to be really, if that's a state developed training to put into practice. There's some interactive exercises that are going to be a part of that, of how to really implement the LifeCourse Framework. So it'll be a jump off from what we did today.
And if you all remember, in June, we did welcome Julie Reynolds and Kim Opsel, who are from the Division of Disability and Rehabilitative Services, and they shared with us the state's vision for implementing the LifeCourse Framework and supporting individuals and families in the life that they want to have. So I would encourage everyone to maybe go back and take a listen to that workshop, which again is located on our website. Just as a refresher, both Julie and Kim's presentation and Heather and Carolyn's today, excuse me, are building upon the LifeCourse framework and how the state is going to be implementing that into the person-centered planning changes that are going to occur in the next several months. So I think it's really good information for everyone to have. We do have a question asking if activities are able to be added to the iConnect with Friends, which Heather mentioned is available on our website. And yes, anyone is able to submit activities or clubs or different things that are happening around the state. There is a button on the iConnect with Friends page that you can access through our website, and that will then take you to a form where you can add activities. So they will then, once that is submitted, we make sure that all of the necessary information is there, and then share that information publicly on the iConnect with Friends website. So we do encourage everyone to take a look at that. Let's see. If there are any other questions, feel free to add those in now. Well, I am not seeing any additional questions, but I would like to thank Heather and Carolyn again for sharing this information with us, and to thank everyone for joining us today. Please be looking for the information that was presented within the next couple of days, and I look forward to having you all back with us on September the 15th. Have a great afternoon, everyone. Thank you.